But joining me now to discuss this march and indeed the policing of it is former Scotland Yard detective Peter Bleksley. Peter, thank you very much for coming in this afternoon. The march is going ahead. The Met Police have said they don't have the criteria to ban it. What do you make of how it's being handled today?
Well, it's been one heck of a week in terms of the build-up to this protest today. And I've travelled to the studio on the Underground and just recently seen some people who are heading towards that protest with their banners and their flags, and they look like entirely peaceful, lovely kind of people, the sort you might want to have as neighbours. But of course, that doesn't speak for the entirety of this protest, unfortunately. And we know from the previous weeks there are elements in this march who are determined to cause trouble, who may spread hatred with their chanting, with their banners and the such like. And the police, of course, have had to walk a bit of a tightrope in terms of policing it in recent weeks. It's huge today. And for the first time, there are counter-protesters who have already been involved in some minor scuffles. And I'm hearing that a group of them have been, as the Met Police say, detained near to Westminster Bridge. Important to look at the language here, detained rather than arrested. So we'll have to see how things pan out during the afternoon. I sincerely hope, like every right-minded person do, that there's no major disorder.
As a former police officer, I mean, this is like, I think 3,000 police have been drafted in, all leave cancelled. This is the largest number of police we've seen for this commemoration, literally ever. How does that make you feel, the fact that we do have to have huge parts of London, sort of like, you know, with orders keeping people away from them, rings of steel around the Cenotaph, Whitehall shut off, to the protest march in particular? How does it make you feel as a former officer that we are where we are with it?
It's the price of democracy. It's the price of protecting protests. And as unpalatable as it may be to many, wait until a journalist does a Freedom of Information Act application on Monday to find out what the cost of today's policing was.
Yeah, absolutely.
And policing the previous 4 weekends as well. It's going to be astronomical. It really is. But of course, with 1,800 or more police officers, you can provide a level of security, which of course we hope is going to be sufficient so that people don't get hurt, property doesn't get damaged, and the sanctity of tomorrow's Remembrance Sunday is properly and respectfully preserved.
Would you have rather the march not take place this weekend at all?
No, I would always want protest to be allowed. That is, of course, unless there's going to be serious disruption and violence, when, of course, a commissioner can go to a Home Secretary and ask for such a march to be banned. You can't ban gatherings. They are almost sacrosanct within human rights legislation. Protests, marches, you can. But of course, Mark Rowley, the Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police, Sir Mark Rowley, was very vocal this week saying that bar that they need to hit hadn't been met, consequently it's going ahead.
But the bar was hit a few years ago now, wasn't it, with the now defunct EDL, the English Defence League. They had marches banned. So what's the difference?
They did. There was a precedent. But that bar, in terms of the threat, the real threat, supported by information and intelligence, not just somebody's guesswork, but based on facts, the likelihood was considerable that there would be serious and violent disruption. That threshold has not been met this week, hence no such application has been made.
OK, and Suella Braverman this week, obviously, we've all now her infamous piece in the Times newspaper about this being a hate march, but also, in particular, having a go at the police, the way they've policed this particular march over the past few weeks and the way they handle other marches, in particular marches that can be classified as right-wing, and also the Sarah Everard vigil as well.
Yeah, two-tier policing, the Home Secretary spoke about.
Do you think she's right? Do you think she has a point?
Well, let me quote a fairly recent example, if I may. It's the opposite side of the same coin, I would argue. Let's just rewind a few short months to when Just Stop Oil started laying down in the road and causing huge disruption to people wanting to go about their daily lives and a lot of irritation.
Yeah, absolutely,
The Met Police stood by and did nothing. and people got very cross about it. So Mark Rowley, the commissioner, went on the media and said there's nothing we can do, and he used a case from the Supreme Court, R.V. Ziegler, for those who want to look up such a court case, as a reason for his officers doing nothing. That's how he interpreted the law. The police are not here to interpret the law. The police are here to enforce the law. And I think Rowley got it wrong. In fact, I know he got it wrong because on Thursday of this week, because I was on the media saying, no, they should be arrested for obstructing the highway. They're committing the offence. Arrest them now. Get the traffic moving. Do it, do it, do it. Rowley didn't. This week, 42 Just Stop Oil protesters have been charged with obstructing the highway.
Absolutely.
Inconsistent policing. What the Home Secretary calls two-tier, I call inconsistent.
OK, and obviously the way the policing have handled it, it's very difficult for people on the front line. I mean, Mark Rowley was saying that, you know, if anyone uses the phrase jihad, for example, that they face arrest. I mean, now, if you're an ordinary copper on the front line, I mean, is it down to you to interpret what people are saying and make that decision?
It's down to them to enforce it, and look at the trouble the Met got themselves into only last week when one of their advisors, who they've had in the state-of-the-art confidential control room, which is monitoring everything today, Mr. Attic, who was then shown on a 2021 video to be spreading hate